What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer channel here on YouTube. I'm your host, Reed Simpson, along with Dylan, the Champions League avid follower. I can't tell you how many texts I got from this kid this week.
Oh my God, that's all I did.
I look at my phone after not looking at it for 7 minutes, and I'd have like 9 missed texts from Dylan. It's like a clingy girlfriend or something.
Nice.
No. Yeah. Match week 1, the Champions League. I didn't get to really watch as much as I wanted to. I went back and watched some of the matches today from yesterday, and then I kind of caught some of them today. Did a deep analytical dive on all of them, though. So I am prepared. Overall, yesterday, I thought it was kind of a snooze fest.
None
of the games I went into the day being super excited about besides Milan and Newcastle, and that's just because you're a Newcastle supporter. Today was really the day that I felt we would get the drama, and that's exactly what happened. We will start with yesterday, though, and we have to start with Barcelona because, wow. They look very good. Everybody can just basically pack it in now, go home. Barcelona's winning the tournament.
It's over.
João
the
Felix
João effect.
Looks,
the João effect.
Yeah,
Both Joãos,
looks like
but the João effect.
A like-for-like Messi replacement in that game. He was unbelievable. Dylan, I have a question for you. I know you see it on the outline, but I do want to ask you, which club, franchise, coach has ruined their starlet's career more? The Los Angeles Angels with Mike Trout or Diego Simeone when he had João Felix? Obviously, Trout's much older than Felix. Felix still basically has his whole career. It was more just to put it in and kind of show.
Yeah, a bigger waste is the Angels. They've also started to waste Shohei, but that's a damn good comparison because but from differently though, from a tactical perspective, he was wasted because Simeone plays like the highest, to quote Nick Watanabe, brand of terrorist football imaginable to mankind. People give Newcastle slack. People give Serie A slack. People gave Conte slack. Simeone ball is brutal to watch. Like it's borderline painful to watch, no matter how talented of players they have, and they've had some incredible players.
Apparently, he's tweaked tactics a little bit this year. Apparently, they're a little more offensive.
That's good. It's not hard to get more offensive than where they were at. I will reserve judgment until I actually watch, because I did admittedly did not watch more than 5 minutes on Golasso of that Atleti Lazio game. So we're probably not going to do a deep dive on Atleti. They're almost like Iowa football for me. Like I kind of almost go out of my way to avoid watching it. Because it's it's just a tough watch. No matter what talent's there, no matter how good the team performs, it's just not fun. Like it doesn't do the game justice. It just doesn't do the game justice. So I have nothing to say on Atleti versus Lazio, but I think that comparison on Felix is fantastic because he's incredible. He's everything Chelsea thought they were getting, and I think it just further drives home the point how big of a dumpster fire Chelsea was last year, because Chelsea fans were acting like he was the worst signing imaginable. But no, he's an absolutely fantastic player. Chelsea couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last year with any offensive opportunities. So it is nice to see him
he really
in a
wanted
fun
to be
and
a Barcelona
exciting
too.
side.
He wanted to be a Barcelona all along.
And the Portuguese connection with him and Cancelo coming in, very similar situations, kind of out of favor at a couple of clubs, but highly, highly regarded as one of the top 5 players, arguably in the world, that they're given position. So it is kind of nice to see them. I wish it wasn't Barcelona. For whatever reason, I've never liked Barcelona, even though I was a Messi and Neymar guy over Ronaldo. I just, at my core, am a Real guy. So
everybody has an opinion on the two. You're not just neutral. Like you lean one way or the other.
It's like Red Sox Yankees, and it's like Red Sox Yankees in baseball. Even if you're not like a fan of one of them, like you have your preference, one or the other. Yeah. Who you would be more comfortable seeing succeed. And normally it's not Barcelona, but this Barcelona side is fun. Like I'm going to have a really hard time not making them be appointment TV in Champions League, because they're just a lot of fun to watch. Granted, it was against Royal Antwerp out of the Belgian league, but putting up a 5-0 victory against damn near anybody in Champions League is certainly respectable. And the manner that they did it, specifically João Felix, was really exciting to watch.
It was. Another guy to talk about with Barcelona is Robert Lewandowski. His quest for 100 UCL goals has reached its crescendo. He's 8 away. Dylan, you think he'll hit it this tournament?
Whew.
He scored 5 last year, I think. And
that's tough. I mean, they're going to go further than last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems inevitable at this point. I think there's a lot of other goal scoring ability, like talent on that team, where last year he was asked to do a lot of the goal scoring. So I think it could be tough. It would probably take like a semifinal run, which in our group preview that we just released the other day because of technical difficulties, I did say like I wouldn't be super surprised if Barcelona did make a semifinal run, but I think it would take a semifinal run because there is so much other goal scoring there. I don't see him having a 5-goal group stage again this year.
Yeah. He is Barcelona's oldest ever player to score in the Champions League at 35 years and 29 days.
I don't know why, but that feels wild. That feels...
It does.
Like, I don't think... Like, 35 is not young by any means, but, like, he doesn't feel old enough to be Barcelona's oldest goal scorer. Like, that just...
Yeah.
Doesn't sit right for some reason.
I have no knowledge of, like, back in the day how late people would play. Like, would they play into their mid-30s? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
All right, you said you didn't want to talk about Lazio, but we have to mention Ivan Provedel. Lazio down 0-1 to Atleti in the 5th minute of stoppage time, and he becomes the 4th goalkeeper ever to score in the Champions League, only the 2nd to score a non-penalty goal. Shout out to Jorg Butt of Juve.
Yeah, scored on Juventus 3 times, I thought, right? Or was he a
did he?
Goalie?
I don't know. I just saw Juventus
it was in the early
on
2000s, so it was before we were following, so I could be wrong there. I might have read a graphic wrong or something. But yeah, he had 3, which is
one of the
bonkers.
2 was always Juve, and the other was always a German team. And it sounds like a German name, so maybe he did just bounce around German teams. This is not a Jorg Butt podcast, though. Yeah, shout out to Ivan Provedel.
That was a gorgeous goal. Like it was off.
It was a screaming header.
It was off of a set piece as you know, time wound down, but it wasn't your typical goalkeeper headed goal. It was an absolute howitzer of a goal. It was. If you haven't watched it, I wish we had the rights to show it on our podcast, but we don't. So please go look it up because it was absolutely fantastic. You're right. I didn't have a lot to say on the match itself, but that goal was absolutely gorgeous, and that's peak like Champions League drama, excitement.
Limbs.
That was fantastic. That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go Serie A.
Sure. So when I sat down to write this outline, I didn't expect to write very much on City, but then I had a profound thought about Julian Alvarez. So we're going to talk about City a little bit. Citied, but it took longer than expected. They were down 1-0 at halftime. Dylan, you texted me. I was expecting it to be another jinx and City just not score in the second half. They did 72 seconds in, but you said they would end up winning 6-1. They ended up winning 3-1. 37 shots in the game. They had 22 before halftime. 2.08 XG at half. Just not clinical in front of goal. Somebody who was clinical, though, in the second half is Mr. Julian Alvarez.
My guy. Big fan.
His evolution from Haaland's understudy / backup to the talisman of City when Haaland isn't quite finishing has been really remarkable, and it's been seamless. I mean, he was brought in kind of in that halfway house between, okay, he's for the future, he's a project, but he could probably contribute. And it took him less than a season to really come in, and he's surefire 10 to 12 goals in the Premier League, and that says a lot given the minutes he often gets. But just the way he's taken his role and changed it himself and become integral in the City team is, I don't think, something that a lot of people expected. You were really high on Alvarez, but I mean, to come in and bag a brace and the Champions League opener.
I wasn't that high on him.
That's next level. Huh?
I was high on him. I was high on him, but not.
Oh yeah, you weren't that high
in the Champions League when Haaland's in the starting lineup. Type of high on him. I think it was a fantastic signing. I think I said that at the time. I don't think Haaland is here to stay long term at City. I think we all kind of know where he is most likely headed in a couple of years. Teams are already lining up the funds to sign him when that release clause does become available at like 150 mil, which feels like a bargain. I know it's a lot of effing money, but for him, it's like, all right, yeah, sure. Like that seems reasonable. And City, just being City, is just going to have Julian Alvarez to plug in there and he will be just fine. It is something to note. I don't think I ever expected to say this, especially in the City side, but is Haaland snake bit? Over the weekend, he missed 3 very high chance opportunities. He probably missed 5 high chance opportunities in this game. He ended up getting.
Did he score?
Ended up getting.
Yeah.
No, he did not end up scoring.
He did.
I think he got one over
the weekend.
Yeah, he got one over the weekend, but like he looked snake bitten. Like he just, I mean, and not to his fault most of the time. It's just like that kind of unluckiness is starting to hit him a little bit. I don't think, obviously, we were pretty transparent in this group. Don't think City's going to have any difficulties winning this group, but it is something to watch. If he goes on a goal drought in the Premier League,
he only averages 1 a game.
Right, which is a drought for him. Like, is City prepared to find goals elsewhere? I think we have started to see that with Alvarez, but I do think that's something to keep an eye on. As deep as that top half of the Premier League is if he continues to not score at the clip he has been scoring at, does it kind of open up the Premier League a little bit is something I'm kind of interested in. But City, like you said, City in the second half. I think taking City total goals over 2.5 at halftime was probably the easiest bet I'll make in Champions League at plus money. I feel like I need to start putting out my live plays in Champions League because I had a ton of success last year. Was super hot.
We said we were going to do predictions too. We need to get back on the social media train. We've been slacking on that.
Been slacking a little bit. But yeah, City. But I am a little curious on Haaland. Not at all cooling on Haaland, but how City can respond when he does have those colder games. This was against Red Star Belgrade. So it's reasonable to expect other guys to step up. But will there be enough goal scoring there against the Arsenals, against the Spurs, against the Newcastles who play really well defensively when Haaland is struggling? Is kind of a question I have moving forward out of Champions League into the Prem.
It's kind of like the question we had last year on like if Haaland goes down, and it just never happened. I don't think he'll ever have a significant goal drought, but you never know. With the win, City does avoid becoming the second defending champion to lose their opening match. In the last 28 years, Liverpool lost to Napoli in the opener the year after they won it. So good on them for not being on that side of history. Dylan, let's move on to the San Siro. Let's talk about whatever that was. A promising start. I mean, both teams came out tangoing. Rafael Leao, I think he had a pretty good run in 19th. I think it was the 19th minute. He missed the chance, but
I don't know how he didn't score. In my notes is Milan dominated play. Newcastle was very sound in the final third defensively. Really gave up a bit of attacking possession, but were able to kind of lock it down outside of that superb Leao chance. That was really that, and then there was a really nice ball across the face of goal to Giroud that he slid in and missed by an inch or two. Other than that, I don't think the game was chance-wise as lopsided as it felt. Milan absolutely had more chances, but as far as like high-quality scoring of chances, they really only had 2. One of them was a 50-50 ball that Giroud just didn't get to, and the other was Leao. I don't know how he doesn't finish there being who he is. So a great result for Newcastle, considering it was a very average performance. And I think that
you went in there for a point.
That's the biggest takeaway is we went in for a point, didn't play well, and still came out with a point, which is super promising. Our midfield looked a little lost again. Tonali looked a little out of sorts. His dribble rate was just like 60% or something, which is not what you expect for Sandro Tonali. Bruno played better. He has slowly started playing better, but the big problem is those two playing together, there isn't really a sense of cohesion. They both have similar abilities. Neither of them is truly an attacking midfielder. Neither of them is truly a defensive midfielder. Bruno's a little bit better at bringing the ball out of the back than Tonali. Tonali's progressive passing from that back third was pretty poor at times. So I think that's a huge question mark moving forward for Eddie Howe. We hyped him up to the ends of the earth last year on what he was able to do with lesser talent. Now you have some talent. I really need to see some tactical changes. Obviously, missing Willock and Joelinton are two big misses for Newcastle right now, and two very integral parts of last year. But I do really need to see something out of Eddie tactically, especially in this group. You got PSG at home next. You can't be giving up possession and chances like you gave up to Milan and expect to walk away with 3 points. And really, Newcastle to advance needs to take 3 points from at least two of their three home matches. And PSG at this point, that doesn't really feel possible.
That's generally the formula, yeah.
Yeah, PSG at this point just doesn't feel possible.
I think the most telling graphic from this game is the ball progression, pass plus carry. Y'all's top three pass plus carry ball progressors was Trippier, which is expected, and then Fabian Schär, and then Sven Botman. So your two center backs were your most progressive players.
Schär had a stinker. Botman played phenomenal. Schär had a stinker. Trippier, I would argue, this... I'm sure there could be some Newcastle fans, if they listen to this, drop in the comments if I'm wrong. But this is one of the more memorable Trippier performances I've seen. He was flying around the pitch, both offensively and defensively. He looked absolutely fantastic. A leader at times of chaos. There were times where we looked very out of sorts in the midfield, and as soon as a dead ball happened, he was right there, being the captain that he is, and exactly why we brought him in. I still think he is one of the more, not the best signing of the last couple of years in the Premier League, but certainly one of the more important signings. Not only what he does on the field,
but first one, and
kind of gave a validity to the project. And he, at times, at the back half of last year, gave less than stellar performances. Newcastle fans started to not sour on him, but started to, okay, well, we might need to go get a right back sooner than we thought. And then he puts forward this performance, and I feel super confident in his ability to keep leading this team for the next couple of years, because he looked absolutely phenomenal. Flip side of the fullbacks, though, Dan Burn.
Hold on, before you move on from Trippier, I do want to just read out some of these. 58 successful passes, first on the pitch in that game. 0.28 expected threat, also first in that game. Progression via pass, 8.65, first in the game, and progression via carry, 2.45. First among both teams in that game. So he was everything y'all brought him in to be. Once y'all had gotten to Champions League, obviously it came sooner than expected. But that's what you signed Trippier for. Now you just got to hope that you can get some goals at home and not just sit back and take a point on the road. You'll really have to attack PSG, which obviously you know. So yes, move on to the other side now.
It's bad. It's really bad. The number of he just seemed completely out of sorts, and not to disrespect AC Milan or Serie A as a whole, but he looked fairly comfortable at times in the Premier League, progressing the ball forward when he has to. He's never going to be our ball moving fullback. Like, that will always be Trippier. We'll always go down the right when we can, but he blatantly put 3 or 4 balls out of play with no pressure on him, either Tonali or Harvey Barnes or Anthony Gordon down that left side, just completely missed them and turned the ball over in our own half. He did look fairly solid defensively.
We were talking about Dan Burn, right? I don't know if we actually said the name.
Dan Burn. Yes, Dan Burn.
That's what I thought. I was pretty sure
it's going to be really, really tough to win Champions League matches with him at left back. He was very sound defensively, can get a lot of draws with him at left back, I think, but it's going to be very tough being so one-dimensional down that right-hand side once you start playing the upper echelons of Europe. You can get away with it playing Brentford. No offense, Brentford, I love you. I think you're a very solid Premier League team, but you can get away with it against a side like Brentford. You're not getting away with that against PSG or Dortmund or AC Milan. Like, you're just not scoring goals.
Especially a Tony less Brentford, especially.
Right. Like, you're going to be able to get away with that in the Premier League, but it was really, really exposed at how poor he is progressing the ball forward from that left side. And it's really unfortunate because we have a lot of very good left wingers we don't have a lot of very good right wingers. So it's like we're kind of at an impasse here. Like I love Trippier bringing the ball up, but when he has to dink it off to Almiron as opposed to dinking off to Anthony Gordon, who looked phenomenal, like there's a difference there. And Dan Burns' inability to get the ball forward to Gordon, who did look fantastic when he was on the pitch, was extremely frustrating. And it's going to be tough moving forward with him at left back in European competition.
Yeah, you guys were very lopsided on the right-hand side, and that's just not something you can do in the Champions League. Well, I'm going to get better about putting in graphics into these videos. I promise. We need to up our production level, but I mean, there's y'all's passing network, and it's so right heavy. It's I mean, AC Milan could pretty much just ignore the left side of the pitch, so that's something that's going to need to be fixed. But hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're here. You're probably not supposed to be. Well, you are supposed to be because you earned it, but.
Yeah, no, it's early.
You know what I mean?
It's early. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So yeah, actually, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Reed has to pee. All right, we are back from Reed's potty break. One more game to talk about from yesterday, and that is the other side of the group of death, PSG and Dortmund. PSG dominated this game. We were talking off air before we started recording it. Yeah, not to bring Tottenham into this, but this PSG team feels a lot like Tottenham does, losing a Messi and Neymar and becoming a better team for it. That's not to say that, you know, they're going to be better off not having the best player in the history of football, or maybe, but it's not a foregone conclusion. And then Tottenham also with Harry Kane, they just feel much more team-oriented. A lot of that has to do with Luis Enrique, just a known team productivity coach, if you will. So, Dylan, was this on the same time as Newcastle? Did you get to watch any of this one?
It wasn't at the same time, but I did devote a lot of time yesterday watching Newcastle, so I was only loosely following a lot of yesterday's late games. But I did go back and watch extended highlights and look at the statistics and analytics from this game, and it's about what I kind of expected. Like you said, Luis Enrique, perfect manager for them. As I said in our group previews, I love what they've done in the window. Very, very busy window, both selling and buying. But they have a much more cohesive French feel to them, which I think is going to be PSG's kind of sweet spot. There's only so much room for Galacticos teams in the world, and those are, I think, PSG isn't quite on that level, but there are so many good French players that if you do build a French superstar team, in theory, you should be able to compete very, very competitively in Europe. And I think we're starting to see that. I've really enjoyed watching them when I have been able to watch them this year. They did bounce back after a somewhat disappointing loss to Nice over the weekend. So there was a little question, I know, going into yesterday, like, hey, this group of death, everybody's kind of struggling. Milan just got thumped by Inter 5-1 over the weekend. Newcastle only has 2 wins on the year. Dortmund kind of reeling, but PSG kind of righted the ship. And I think this is kind of the game I expected from them, very on the front foot for most of the match. Mbappe doing Mbappe things, scoring on a penalty. And I do think this further solidified my belief that PSG finishes first, Dortmund finishes fourth. I do think second is kind of up in the air. I know that's easy to say because 1 won, 1 lost, and 2 drew. So I know it's pretty easy to say. It's not super analytical, but it did just kind of further the thoughts I had on that a little bit.
Yeah, Dylan, I just shared my screen with you. I want to look at the passing network from this game. This is just embarrassing from Dortmund. They had zero presence of passing network on the attacking side of the pitch. Literally zero. They only had one player. One player's average positioning was on the attacking side of the pitch, and PSG just damn near had about everybody, and it was very symmetrical. I'm sure it was super attractive to watch. I didn't get to watch the game in full, and when you watch extended highlights, you don't really get the suave of the game. So, but PSG is going to win this group. I feel it now for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on to
before we move on. I just need to give a quick shout out to Feyenoord. Yes, got some help from Double Reds from Celtic, but my guy I'm not even going to try to say his first name because I will probably butcher the Gambian first name. But Minta is a Newcastle loanee starting in Champions League football. And that's like one of those like, oh, I've had two yesterday. I had kind of like two. Oh my God, we're like a pretty big club now. First one was him starting, and he's a loanee starting in Champions League. Feels pretty awesome. It's something that feels completely foreign as a Newcastle fan. And then I saw a Newcastle jersey at the Oakland University versus University of Michigan soccer game last night, which was awesome to see. Like it's like it feels cool. Like we're getting there. We're arriving. It felt really good. He started at the number 9, but did look to be much more of a right wing, which is exactly what Newcastle is missing. So super promising there for Newcastle fans. Don't have a lot more on it, but I had to give a shout out to the Newcastle loanee starting, and I think he played about 65 minutes of the game and was heavily involved. Very, very forward progressive. He analytically looked really good, and the bits of the match I saw, he looked really good too. So yeah, little humble brag on my Magpies, but feeling pretty good about our project right now for sure.
Good.
Now we can move on to today.
Which game do we have first here? Real Madrid and Union Berlin. I guess this is a good point for me to say this. Yesterday was kind of a snooze fest. Today was every bit of what you see in the Champions League. It was teams dominating but not getting on the score sheet until a last minute. It's a legacy being built in Jude Bellingham. I mean, he is like full on his Ronaldo train at Real Madrid. You had late equalizers, you had late posts. It was proper Champions League today.
You needed Golasso today. You could have lived without Golasso yesterday. You needed every bit of Golasso today. It was electric down to the last minute, but it did start with those 12:45, 11:45, 10:45, whatever time zone you're in. That early match of Real. They felt very, very City-esque in the first half. Loads of chances, just not finishing. I do think the thing that is going to keep them from a deep run like we've seen in the past is that true goal scorer, though. Bellingham is absolutely phenomenal. Top 2 or 3 midfielder in the world without question, whatever you want to call him, midfielder in the world. He's so much more than just a midfielder, but top 2 or 3 midfielder in the world. But they don't have that Karim Benzema or that Mbappe that they were trying to go get. And I think that is going to be kind of the sticking point for them. I have no concerns about them getting out of the group by any means. But as far as we're talking about like deep runs past the quarterfinals, I think there's enough talent and a good enough system there that quarterfinals should be expected at minimum. But I do see them being a side that could get knocked out a little bit earlier than we're used to seeing Real get knocked out, purely because they're lacking that true clinical finisher right now. And it showed through. Like Joselu is starting for them in Champions League games. And as a Newcastle fan, that feels weird. Number one, former Newcastle guy. I don't know how he's starting for Real Madrid in Champions League games. No disrespect to him. He's a fine player, but it's just not that normal attacking presence you expect from a Real Madrid when they had Cristiano Ronaldo scoring at will in Champions League and Karim Benzema with some absolutely incredible Champions League runs over the last couple of years. That's what they're missing. Very well-rounded team, an absolutely phenomenal midfield, just kind of missing that clinical finisher. And I think that could come to bite them come the knockout rounds. But they do have January, and Real, as we know, has all the money in the world and all the pull in the world, so they could fix that. Yeah. But as the team stands right now, I'd be kind of surprised to see them make a deep run.
They also have the DNA, which I'm just a big believer in across all sports. I preach it a lot in college baseball. Like Mississippi State could have a really bad season, still end up in Omaha because they just have that DNA in that sport.
Absolutely.
And Real Madrid has the DNA coursing through their veins in the Champions League. So, quarterfinal minimum. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the semis or the final, really, depending on what they do in January.
At the end of the day, it is Real Madrid. So yeah.
Yes, yeah. Napoli and Braga. This was a belter. This was a fun game, right down
especially
to the end.
Second half, yeah.
Yeah, when Braga hit a post literally in the last 60 seconds. I hardly watched any of this game, Dylan, so I'm going to let you take the reins on it.
It felt really weird. I just complained about Real not having a clinical finisher after talking about Holland being a clinical finisher and not finishing. I'm going to do the same with Napoli. Osimhen had 3 or 4 chances in the first half that he didn't bury and got extremely frustrated, got a yellow card for dissent after what he thought should have been a penalty and was a blatant foul on him, but he got frustrated. I think it was kind of a compounding frustration, compounding dissent type of card, not necessarily on that play alone. But it didn't feel like that Napoli, obviously not the Napoli dominance of last year, but like that cachet of last year. Like once there was the equalizer, it was like, all right, this might be all there is in this game. I'm not sure. I didn't really get a lot of vibe on Napoli really asserting themselves. No disrespect to Braga. Very, very solid Portuguese side, but it felt like a game even on the road. Napoli should have been a little bit more assertive in their finishing, and they just weren't. So we could see a slight step back from Napoli, which seems obvious. No offense to Napoli, you're not AC Milan, you're not Juventus, you're not Inter. You're kind of that 1B tier of the Serie A, and I think we'll kind of see a little bit more of that 1B tier from them in Champions League, unless Osimhen goes on another kind of crazy run like he did last year. But from that first match, it just didn't feel like he had it today. And maybe it was a one-off. Very well could have been a one-off, just not on his A game. But it's something to keep in mind and kind of watch moving forward.
Yeah, Napoli was going to take a step back. They weren't going to win the league in January or whatever it was they wanted in last year. It wasn't January, but it was something ridiculous. I think one thing interesting with Napoli is they have so many progressive players, especially Krivoshev, however you say his name, the Georgian. You expect them to, and with what we saw last year, just get the ball into the box or at least into the final third at will. And they had 29 half space passes and only 18 final third passes, and Braga had 14. So it was a pretty evenly played game, especially in the meaningful parts of the pitch. So Napoli is not last year's Napoli. They still have great players. I think Kim and Jay was a big part of their build-up, and we're definitely seeing them missing him now. It's not the Napoli of last year.
Yep. Yeah, no, I was not expecting to sweat that money line bet like I was sweating it near the end there, but they were able to pull it out. But I do agree. I think Kim and Jay is a huge departure for them and something that we'll see going forward. And we saw right before the draw, they dropped a game pretty relatively handily, I believe, to Lazio. I didn't watch that game in full, so I feel free to tear me apart in the comments, but they lost to Lazio on the weekend a couple weekends ago, and it was that was kind of the first sign that this wasn't the Napoli.
I want to say 4-1 or something.
I honestly don't even remember the score line. I feel like I remember the analytics and the statistics of it being a little shocking for me not watching that game. But that was kind of my first inkling that this isn't the Napoli of last year, and today kind of solidified that, because again, no disrespect to Braga, but I expect the Napoli to walk in, and even if it was a 2-1 win, a comfortable 2-1 win, and this was very, very far from a comfortable 2-1 win. Braga did look very good. Again, no concerns on them advancing, but it is another thing where they'll probably advance, but I don't know how far they're getting after they advance.
Yeah, and I mean, it is worth noting, like, no matter how good you are, whether you're Real Madrid or Napoli, these teams, these pot one teams, they have stinkers. They have these games versus the pot fours that they oftentimes lose. So to get the win is big. They were holding on by the skin of their teeth at the end. But to get the 3 points, good on them.
That's all that matters. They don't ask how, they ask how many, right?
Yep, that's right. Let's talk about the
Your favorite.
We don't have much to talk about on this. I mean, it was a 4-0 Arsenal win. PSV looked real bad.
Tactically they looked bad. It's like they didn't watch tape on Arsenal. Like it's like they didn't know
Arsenal. They play the same system as Arsenal. They tried to match them, and you just can't match Arsenal at their system unless you have the players to do it. You can't even come close.
They looked like caught off guard at times about Arsenal trying to play in from the outside, and I'm far from a tactician when it comes to soccer, but I know that much about Arsenal, and PSV seemed to not care about that style. And you're right, they went into it like, all right, we're gonna go try and match them at their own game, and that's just not something they're equipped to do. I will say Jesus had a very, very nice goal in our last EPL roundup recap, whatever you want to call it. We kind of talked about the lack of true finishers for them at that number 9 position, but he had a very true number 9, very, very beautiful goal. And
did a goalkeeper. Nice goals happen.
And Trossard, and we talked about this when they signed him, is such a good fit there. He's such
Kai
a good.
Havertz needs to never see the field again. Trossard needs to start every single game. Yeah.
And only come on if Trossard's hurt or if it's like a fixture congestion and he needs to come off in the 75th against Sheffield.
Yeah, if you're playing Luton or
that's when Havertz needs to see the field, because Trossard has looked phenomenal. He looked phenomenal again today. He looked really good on the weekend. It's like, why are you spending money on Kai Havertz when you have Trossard? I don't know. I don't know if they thought Kai Havertz
such a weird
could have fit into that number 9 role like he tried to do at Chelsea. Like we both said, a lot of the Chelsea flops were due to Chelsea. So I don't know if they saw Havertz and went, let's get him out of Chelsea and he can flourish. But I haven't seen any of that really from him thus far. No. I don't think he's a number 9.
I think that was Arteta getting too cute. I think that was...
No, I absolutely agree. But to be fair, he is a great, phenomenal bench option. Not many teams, like I don't love Kai Havertz, but he is a very good bench option. But spending that money on a bench option is not something I would ever do. But Arsenal did. But I do think Trossard is the answer moving forward for them, because he looked phenomenal again today and is absolutely cooking right now, and has to be something that Arsenal fans are pretty excited about.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating that they figured out this aspect of it right before the North London derby this weekend. I wish Kai Havertz could have just held on a little bit longer to that that role, but I don't know.
Madison's going to score. Emirates. You're fine. You'll get a draw.
I would take a draw. Moving on to Salzburg and Benfica. I'm telling you guys, Salzburg is inevitable in the group stages in the Champions League. I do not have any numbers to back it up. I just feel like they always get out of their group, or at least get third and go into the Europa League. I feel like they're a team that everybody takes lightly, which it's probably not even a conscious decision. I mean, people know that Red Bull Salzburg is a legitimate club that can beat a lot of European top competition. But there's just got to be some sort of mental lapse thing, because they looked good. I mean, Benfica looked bad today, but Salzburg
they had an early red card, which obviously always spells
that's true.
Always spells trouble. But honestly, like, even probably by choice, but Salzburg, once there was the red card given, did kind of lay off the gas a little bit. But it was. I mean, you're playing up a man. Salzburg's really, all the Red Bull sides are really well drilled clubs. But I do think it was kind of nice for them probably to see. I mean, losing Okafor and Sesko, definitely their 2 best goal scorers last year. I don't know statistically, but like eye test, definitely their 2 best goal scorers last year, and they were still able to bag 2 goals in their first Champions League game against a Benfica side who was untouchable. I think they win all 6. No, they only won 5. I think they drew their 5th or drew their 6th last year. But
they were on some sort of Napoli run last year.
Yeah, a Benfica side that in group stage last year, and granted, Benfica lost their goal scorer as well.
Yeah, but they got hit in January pretty hard.
Yeah, it has to be a really good feeling win for Salzburg, to be sure. They're now undefeated this year in all competitions. They're 5 wins and 1 draw. So, granted, it's the Austrian league, but it's tough to go undefeated in 6 matches, regardless of your league. So yeah, they do feel a little bit inevitable at this point.
FC Salzburg started 11 players today. Their average age, 21 years and 183 days.
That is so prime Salzburg. That is definition of Red Bull Salzburg right there, though. And they'll, I would guess 3 of them by this time next year will be playing for Leipzig, and 2 of them will get sold elsewhere, and they'll do the whole damn thing again next year. Like we talked about this in our group preview. It's like, I don't know any names on this team, but like you said, they just kind of feel inevitable in a different way than
lots
Alabama.
Lots of Dedic and Pavlovich and Terzic and
different in a lot of ways than like your college football programs that seem to constantly reload because they're not getting like the premier names, but they do it very similarly. It's just like, oh well, I don't know this guy, but he's going to be pretty damn good because he's on Salzburg. Like that Red Bull system is just so sound. You really can't take them lightly for sure.
Salzburg had they had 5 guys on the pitch today that if they were playing in the United States would not be able to go get a beer after the game, which is that's so impressive in the Champions League. I know a lot of our big like the people that maybe follow us that don't really follow soccer, the Champions League. It's just such a nervy environment to have those Eastern Europeans who grew up on vodka and cigarettes come in there and they just don't give a shit. They really don't. So good on Salzburg. The highlight of the day was Man U Bayern going into the day. And it ended up being a pretty good game.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Man U is, they can't buy success right now, literally and figuratively. Onana just looks terrible. I mean, he looks like Harry Maguire in goal.
Awful.
Like, he's
absolutely awful.
He looks terrible.
Which
is like so weird
because he was a vast part of Inter's success last year, and he's just been bad. Like not just today, but he's been bad. Like he was brought in because Man United wanted to have like a ball progressing goalkeeper because De Gea is. We all saw De Gea last year. He is certainly not ball progressing goalkeeper. And Onana is supposed to be all that, but at the end of the day, you got to stop shots. Like that first goal, I think it was the first goal, maybe it was the second. He gave up 4, so it's hard to keep track. But it was ugly. It was ugly, and the scoreline I don't think is fully indicative of the match as a whole.
That was
Casemiro's goal
3-1 Bayern win, and if you just watch the match.
Casemiro's goal is phenomenal. I'm not trying to take anything away from those goals at the end. I didn't catch was Bruno? I think Bruno Fernandes got the third. Casemiro was the second. I don't remember the order, but I didn't catch Bruno Fernandes' goal. If it was him, I think it was. But Casemiro's was phenomenal. But overall, Bayern handled the game.
I think Casemiro scored a brace. I think Casemiro had 2.
Okay, maybe Bruno Fernandes got the assist. No, maybe he got the assist on it. Well, like I said, I didn't see whatever that one was. I saw the one where he kind of juggled it in the box, almost completely parallel to the ground and finished from his backside. Like that was gorgeous. That was absolutely beautiful. I hate hyping up Man U, but that was an absolutely beautiful goal. But overall, Man U did. Well,
Casemiro's still Real Madrid. He's always going to be Real Madrid in my mind. So that's not even giving Man U props.
But Bayern did look very comfortable. I think Man United is somewhat lucky that Galatasaray wasn't able to secure 3 points after a Copenhagen red at home. I do think that was a massive, massive drop of points for Galatasaray if they do want to really push for second. So, Man, you might be able to sneak through on talent and talent alone, but we know talent only gets you too far. And I've said it a couple times, don't see a long run. I don't see a run out of the round of 16 for this Man U side. There's just not enough there.
No, there's not.
They could play any second or any first place team, and I think they get handled like 5-2 on aggregate type of thing, unless we see some crazy group winner that we don't expect, and they are lucky enough to draw them. This is not your old school Man U. This is the first time they've given up 4 goals.
Not your grandpa's Man U.
First time they've given up 4 goals in the Champions League in 30 years, which was kind of a crazy stat that I heard or saw. But I think it is pretty indicative of the Man U side we're looking at right now.
Yeah, I think so also. Me, obviously, going into this game, I want to watch Harry Kane and how he played. And he didn't overwhelm in a big competition. What do you know?
Shocker.
But, yeah, he scored his PK.
Also, shocker. That was sarcastic.
But no, I mean he's going to have to give Bayern more to to give them what they want in him.
What they paid for and expect, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's weird. This was a 4-3 game, but there's not a whole lot to talk about because we talk about Man U every week and how they suck and how they're struggling and how Ten Hag is pissed off all the time. Interestingly, Onana did ask to speak to the team after the game and apologized to them in the dressing room. He said, "This one's on me, guys." And yeah, no shit.
Well, no shit. Is it though? Because like, you guys didn't deserve 3 goals. Like, in his defense of that statement is like they were able to find 3 goals, but I also don't think if Bayern wasn't so dominant, as weird as this sounds, if Bayern wasn't so dominant, I don't think they get those couple of in stoppage time. Like I think we just saw Bayern kind of take the foot off the gas a little, which is not Bayern like in the Champions League. So maybe I'm wrong on that, and maybe Man U really did push it there at the end, but Man U ain't going nowhere in the Champions League. Man U ain't going nowhere in the Premier League. Man U is in trouble on and off the pitch.
Yeah. I was also looking at the wrong game. Harry Kane had a great game. He put up an 8.5, had 4 key passes, 3 long balls completed out of 4. Yeah, he had a good game, but he scored his penalty, which probably inflated that a little bit. So Bayern won on name brand alone, the match of the weekend. And they're, as we expected, sitting in the driver's seat in Group A. Dylan, did we miss anything from yesterday and today? Yes, we did, but we're not going to talk about Galatasaray in Copenhagen.
I'd be remiss to not at least mention the Inter game. This is more Inter I expected after the summer window. Just not imposing will until Marcus Thuram came on, which was the only signing I was remotely excited for Inter. But he made an instant impact. I was very surprised to not see him in the starting lineup, but made an absolute instant impact. The game really turned on its head when he came on. Lautaro Martinez did what Lautaro Martinez does and scores big goals in big games, but a lot of that was due to Thuram coming on. I really like those two playing together, but this was kind of more of the reserved Inter I expected after the window. So I do have a little bit concern about Inter moving forward, but kudos to Sociedad. I think after some of the transfer, some of the guys they lost in the transfer window over the last 12 months, a lot of people were kind of not fully expecting a lot out of Sociedad, but I think the Kieran Tierney signing was absolutely phenomenal for them. He's looked to fit in quite well there. So I think that Inter group, I think we talked about them as being a coin flip group, that Inter group, not really knowing what to expect. And this only furthered that for me. I really don't know what to expect. This game told me absolutely nothing about these two sides. It's kind of what I somewhat expected. But kudos to Sociedad. Hosted the runners up from last year and were able to get a point. So kudos to them. Poor on Inter for not starting Thuram. I do think he'll get a lot more play time as Champions League rolls on, and he looked really good. So we'll see. It was a really fun Wednesday. Tuesday kind of sucked, but Wednesday was a lot of fun.
I do have to give us props. We gave Sociedad pretty high praises, maybe not high praises, but we definitely gave them a shot, and that was reiterated today in this game. They won the XG, they won the X threat with less possession, so they really controlled the game without controlling the game. And against a team like Inter in the Champions League, that's props, because Sociedad's a young team as well, and they're just not, one of those big clubs that you expect to show up because they are who they are. They really have to dig down deep and have that mentality, and they did, barring the late equalizer. So Wednesday was absolute limbs. It was a fun day today. Hopefully that group of death can get a little more exciting, because it was probably the least exciting.
On paper, it should have been the least exciting matchups, though. Newcastle was going to go into San Siro looking for a draw. PSG was going to dominate. PSG was going to dominate Dortmund at home. So I think it will kind of ramp up. I'm hoping. As a fan of the game as a whole, I'm hoping it kind of ramps up a little bit, and I think it should as we start to see some of those other fixtures.
Yeah. Guys, we appreciate y'all watching as always. If y'all like the content, make sure to like and share with your friends and family. Give us I can never say give us a subscribe. It really helps us out. We want to monetize this thing, get like 5 cents a week. So we will see y'all next week, or really we'll see y'all in a few days. What's today? Wednesday? See y'all on Sunday or Monday for Premier League, and y'all have a good rest of your week. Peace out. Here's the stop.
Oh, that's on me.